tool for the education fix here called Restream.io. And we are live streaming to multiple platforms, which is pretty wild. Technology, Rich, is pretty amazing sometimes. And this company has figured out a way to restream to Twitter and LinkedIn, you name it, it could, YouTube, you name it, it could restream to it synchronously. So technology is an amazing tool if we just figure out how to leverage it in the right way. And our topic for today, we've spoken about this in the past, but our topic for today is really looking at why and how schools are going back in September. A lot of people are coming to decisions on that, or tentative decisions, tentative plans on that. And some of what we're hearing, I think we want to go through and offer potential solutions as well. So welcome, Rich. How are you?
I'm good. I'm going a little cabin crazy in the house, as most people are. But otherwise, I'm just fine. Thank you. Hope you're all well over there, way out west.
Yes, we are. Yeah. So, Rich, a lot of what, and you do a lot of reading up on this. We both do a lot of reading up on this, and a lot of the plans that are coming down. I think probably the biggest one people are leaning towards is this sort of hybrid option where you're splitting days with kids, and anybody who's done scheduling, anybody who's done things in school districts at high level knows that that is logistically not a fun thing to deal with in a nightmare. And before we get into this, we've both been leaders in education at high levels, and this is no easy task. So we're not demeaning that task in any way, shape, or form, right? But we're looking at both you and I have had this conversation before, and we're looking at the numbers increasing in all these areas since the onset of this with COVID. They've said it's going to come back in the fall. It's amazing, and you see from the high levels in this country now, people saying we must go back to school. And to me, it is our focus is it really in the wrong area, and I think it's nonsensical. It makes zero sense to me to try and send. I have 3 kids of my own. You have kids and grandkids. It makes zero sense to me to send these children back to school when the numbers are exponentially increasing, and we're getting more new cases a day than we ever thought possible at this point. Yes, the mortality rate is lower, but we also have double the amount of cases every day. So for me, it doesn't make any sense that we are thinking about going back to school. And I think our focus is in the wrong area. Rather than figure out a solution based on, hey, it's not safe for kids to go back to school, let's go from there. We're trying to do this piecemeal solution to try and make everybody happy. And in the end, no one's going to be happy, and no one, I don't think, especially our kids, are going to be safe. So just thoughts on this, Rich.
Well, the metaphor that comes to mind straight away, and it's not mine, I wish it were, but we've all heard it before, trying to build a plane while it's flying. And that's exactly what's going on. People are decision makers. I use that word advisedly. Decision makers are deciding while they're flying. In fact, there's a name for this theoretically. Believe it or not, there is a name for it. I forget the author of the title, but it's called muddling through. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're moving one step at a time, little step-by-step kind of things, and then reversing steps and going left and going right, sort of like the old Pac-Man video game. As you bump into a bump, you go this way and that way to avoid the next issue that comes along. And I hate to be so negative, but the sum of it, the SUM of it is, it's a mess.
It is a mess, and I mentioned before we're focusing on the wrong thing, and I think you said this when we were speaking offline about the sort of the power of technology. And I opened this with talking about this service that we're using now. I guarantee that most people out there don't realize that this is a service that you could stream simultaneously to all these different platforms. If they did, they'd be using it, right? Especially those that do video content. So in my mind, the focus really needs to be in education. Teachers are afraid to go back. Parents are afraid to have their students go back. Grandparents are afraid to have their their grandkids go back. Everybody is afraid to go back and have major reservations about that. So why are we avoiding what the instincts of millions of people are saying, right? So why aren't we? I think we need to leverage technology to focus on creating a truly authentic and engaging online environment. And I'm not saying that we should just go straight to online permanently, but the way we can do things online, there's no reason that we can't have synchronous teaching online in K-12 and higher ed effectively, that we can't have that. And the curriculum will be aligned in such a way that you can easily go from one thing to the other. And I'm big on this easily transferable learning model, right? We could easily go from the online space to the physical location if everything gets better in January without missing a beat. And yes, there are things to consider: younger students, parents who are working, and childcare. Those issues are going to be there whether we have a blended hybrid model or we go straight to fully online and keep everybody safe. So I'm not sure why, for example, the hybrid model is a better model, because it's not solving any problems. We still need childcare. People are still going to work. There's still, I think there's an added problem of this thing spreading because even if we're social distancing, try and get kindergartners and first graders and second graders, or middle school and high school for that matter, to social distance or to be diligent about wearing masks. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And it seems like there are solutions, and there are people much brighter than us that could come to these solutions where it makes this easily transferable from one environment to the other. And oh, by the way, it's also teaching kids and parents these skills that are necessary moving forward in the online space. So that's the thing that I'm struggling with. Like, why are we so focused on, like we said, building the plane in midair versus a real solution that keeps everybody safe and gives students authentic, engaging experience in the online space?
Well, yeah, as I said to you, I really apologize to anyone who's watching this and saying, "Why is Bernardo being so negative?" I'm trying not to be, but it's just the way I'm built sometimes. And as I said to you before we got on, Al, it's really almost unconscionable if you think about it that we had to come to this. It didn't have to be this way. We could have gone online full bred. We could have done all these different models that you're talking to, preferably online, again, with the dangers that still exist and apparently are escalating. I absolutely agree with you about that. Because the collective we were aware of the capacity of technology to do great things with learners well before March. And yet, I'm going to use a word I shouldn't probably use in a podcast. We half-assed it. Because
Right.
what we did was we cut and paste something, and we cobbled something together that perhaps captures some of the very positive elements of what technology could do in online education, in lieu of or instead of or better than we can do face-to-face. Understanding and acknowledging there are certain things that technology cannot do that can only be done face-to-face, which is clearly a part of why people object to going fully online. But I'm making up a number. I don't know what the date it might be, but 10 years ago, maybe longer, 2010, we could have done pretty much everything that we're trying to do now. I'm not so sure of the video part, but we could have figured out a lot of this. And we could have not only put a process in place or processes in place, we could have built the capacities for these things to be part of what we do, part of the culture of learning in our country, let alone the world. And we didn't do that.
And Rich, we could. The evidence of that we had the capacity and the ability to do that is what's transpired, right? We've shifted. We've shifted as a society, and the educational system has shifted completely. And teachers, administrators, people are doing things that they never would have imagined that they could do or would do even in their teaching careers or their leadership careers. They are doing things that they never imagined. So if that is a given, people have done that. So why not continue the evolution of this and make it so that we're exploring and going deeper into this space so that and learning more. Look at this as an opportunity to evolve in education versus, like you said, piecemeal it together and have this sort of potpourri of options that none of them really make anybody happy, and none of them really address the true issue of keeping our kids safe. That's the bottom line, right?
And what we've done has been haphazard. Maybe school XYZ has a critical mass of teachers and staff who have learned how technology can be an answer to lots of our prayers. And then I know of school districts within the radius of where I live that haven't even begun to plan for September, waiting on some kind of manna from heaven to come down to give them some kind of direction, and it ain't coming. So what they need to do is to come back to have a process for deciding to deal with the September thing, which is and the ineptness of what we're trying to do for September, or whenever schools may open in your part of the country. The ineptness of that is traceable back to the fact that the vision that we had or should have had 10 plus years ago never took root, and ignored the equity issues, which we haven't even talked about in this particular podcast. Ignored that, glossed over the technological capacity of different kinds of structural issues with technology. None of that has really been put in place, and it's sort of like they're just kind of wishing that this was all going to take care of it, when in fact it's just not the case. I mean, there are instances of New York City schooling that I heard from reliable sources that, I mean, it's just appalling what they're trying to do. And it's just maddens me. Now, the solution would be along the lines of what you said, but one solution would be some real leadership to bring folks together and to, I don't like to use this word, here it comes, to come up with one model that addresses the true purposes of what we think education is. Education may be daycare. Obviously, it's part of what we are, is daycare, which is an economic issue that is one reason why it's being pressed forward so hard by certain decision makers. But it goes deeper than that. And what we need to do is to consistently, across the board, train everyone to know why we're using the technology and why the technology has great value and capacity to truly transform what we're doing rather than to do it backwards, forward, and inside out. One quick thing, I know I'm talking too much, but lady I know, Dr. Melissa Lambert, works in New York City School of Education, has produced really strong research to show that you can't drop back to last March and try to remediate from March of 2019 or 2020 to now. You'll never catch up.
Right.
So he has a model showing how you grab the highlights of what you're trying to do and remediate as it comes along with giving children with whatever issues they bring to the learning floor. How many people are going to try to do that, or are going to drop back to, well, on March 16th, we were doing division by fractions. So in September 1st, we're going to start with division by fractions. That's silly, haphazard, self-destructive planning. And I don't know who this someone is necessarily. Someone has to take this and make it so. I don't see it happening. I mean, I don't see it happening now. I'm not saying I don't see it ever happening. I just don't see it happening today.
Yeah, and Rich, what I'd love to do as we just close out, we have a quick session today, but what I'd love to do in the coming weeks is really talk about some of these critical issues, because it's easy for us to say, this is what it is, and there has to be a solution. And we offered some suggestions here, but I think that we have enough in our network that we'd love to have people on too. So if you want to come on and talk about some of the solutions that you've looked at and the angles that you've examined, specifically in, yes, higher level. We've spoken on our podcast, the high level folks in education, those high level leaders that are bringing it all together. But just as important, are those folks that are really truly dealing with the equity issues. We're working with a district on Long Island that has really had to confront the equity issues with this pandemic. Someone who can speak to the special education area and dealing with accommodations for special needs folks in this time. Someone who is dealing with the digital divide and the equity piece beside the technology piece of this. We'd love to hear your thoughts. The teacher, the administrator. Those are the things I think we'll look at in these coming weeks and see, not just to hear about what people are doing, but to really start to brainstorm what decisions or what actions are the most beneficial to do two things. And this is all we really care about: educate our students and keep them safe. Right? That's really all we care about.
Around, yeah. Keep them safe and educated, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, Rich, great. Get to back with you. We are going to do this weekly on Mondays. Feel free to comment and add your thoughts. You can email us info at theeducationfix.com. If you'd like to email us, we'd love to hear from you. I'm on Twitter at Dr. Al Pisano. Rich, what's your Twitter?
At Rich, R-I-C-H, Diz, D-I-S, 48.
Excellent. So looking forward to hearing from all of you, and we will catch up with you again next week for sure.